introduction to one of my favorite people on earth, Mr. Stephen Oliver, who is with the Advisor Marketing Podcast. Now, Stephen is a true maverick, and I mean that in every sense of the word. Not only in our business, but I have to tell you, his clients universally love him, and they grow at rates that they wouldn't believe it's possible. Now, on this podcast, in each episode, Stephen is joined by various members of his team or special guests to share insider secrets to rapid growth and high net profits in your financial advisory practice. So I just want you to know you're in for a wild ride, new information, and a lot of exciting new future because of Stephen Oliver. Hi, everybody. It is Lee Milteer, and welcome to Millionaire Smarts. We have a fantastic celebrity author this month. His name is Michalowicz. You're going to recognize him from many of his best-selling books, and some of them you'll know: The Toilet Paper Entrepreneur, Profits First, Pumpkin Plan, Clockwork, Fix This Next, and now his brand new book, which I'm very happy to talk about, is Get Different Marketing. Now, Mike has had over 500,000 readers of his books. He keynotes at some of the world's biggest events. He has built $4 million companies and sold 2. And one was to a private equity and another one was to a Fortune 500 company. And he says those are just the peak moments from decades of entrepreneurial struggles. He went on to say that during that time, he repeatedly fell victim to his own arrogance and ignorance. In addition to those successes, he said, I've lost my house once, lost my entire fortune twice, launched 10 failed businesses, and experienced years of depression. So for nearly 2 decades, he said he lived a life of entrepreneurial poverty, where he was broke financially, emotionally, and physically. And he became a business author with a very clear mission to eradicate entrepreneurial poverty. Listen to that, eradicate entrepreneurial poverty. I think that's a good book title. He said, I have devoted my life to fixing those struggles for you, myself, and every entrepreneur I have the privilege to connect with. So Mike, say hello to the Millionaire Smarts Group.
Millionaire Smarts Group, this is a big hello from Northern New Jersey. And Lee, thank you for having me.
My pleasure. So Mike, Get Different. It's fantastic. I really enjoyed it. I already started making some changes. Books, let's see, all the books are showing.
Oh, yeah.
And I see your tree book, and I love that. I'd love to have that. So when I was reading chapter 1, you started talking about your first book launch and how that turned out for you. And I really want you to just first share that story with our folks.
I think a punch to the face would have been more pleasant, honestly. So the first launch, just to give some context, I wrote a book called The Toilet Paper Entrepreneur. I thought I was a genius. I went to mainstream publishers. I remember going to Penguin and literally I chuckled out the door. Like, are you kidding me? Like, that's your book? Good luck, kid. And, when I think similar to you, I get shunned, I get a no, that means I have to turn up the heat. So I'm like, I'm going to do this on my own. I got this. So I decided to launch the book. To give context, I purchased 20,000 copies of my own hardcover book, because that's what I'm going to move in this first week. It cost $75,000. It was my last ounce of savings. And I launched the book, and no one bought the book on launch day, like 0. And to give full context, that means my own mother didn't buy a book. It was devastating. And I got a call. I don't remember this person's name, but I got a call from another author. And I was lamenting and sobbing. I was like, I can't believe this is such a flop. And he says, oh, don't worry. He goes, it's simply the quiet before the quiet. And that was like the knife to my heart. But I will tell you one thing. And I as I meet other fellow authors like yourself, as I meet other people, the one word of advice I give is to not get 20,000 copies, but it did become a catalyst. More than that, it was almost like I was rooted in anger at myself that I had to move these books, and ultimately I did.
I think a lot of people are feeling that way about our current environment,
Yeah.
that no matter what, I have to move the needle.
Yeah.
And that's why I was enjoying your book so much, is because really this is all you're talking about, is moving the needle. So let's talk about why most marketing plans tend to fail, because I've been around a long time. I hang out with the same people you hang out with. There's all these experts and
Yeah.
they
Yeah.
have ways of doing it. And I have just bit the dust so many times. My
Ditto.
story isn't quite as bad as the 20,000 books, but very close.
Yeah. Ditto. So I think the challenge is we market our business following best practices. And I don't want to poo-poo best practices, because they are of great service to us in many facilities. Like if we're trying to provide great customer service, follow the best practice of someone that's doing that. If you want to have a great hiring routine, maybe your competitor who introduces you to their best practice gives you something that's worth gold. But marketing best practices often don't work. And the work I do is I love to study behavioral psychology, just how our mind operates, and then apply different lessons and learnings around that. There's this thing called habituation. Habituation is where the prospect, the consumer, the human mind sees something. And when the stimulus is repeated, if we already know what the result will be, it's ignorable, it's irrelevant, we will respond accordingly. If it's dangerous, we'll move away. So the classic example is you burn your hand on the frying pan the first time. My mom says, don't touch the frying pan. I'm like, I touch the frying pan and it sizzles. I will never touch the frying pan again. That is a form of habituation. We learned how to respond to a certain stimulus. Well, when it comes to best practice marketing, we, the consumer, see a form of marketing, and once we know it's irrelevant, we start ignoring any subsequent repetition of it. Here's a classic example. Lee, I'm sure you've gotten those emails a long time ago. It started off with, "Hey, friend."
Yes.
Maybe, yeah, me too. I don't know if it was like 5 or 10 years ago. Remember that first email came in and said, "Hey, friend." The first was great because I was like, who is this like friend, this friendly friend I have who just calls me friend? I don't recall this person. Who is this? And I read the whole thing. And about halfway through, I'm like, hold on, this is not a friend. This is marketing. And it's not relevant to me. Delete. The next "Hey, friend" came in, probably the next day. And I was like, hold on, I remember this. I looked a little bit, it's like, oh, this is marketing. I've never, ever read a "Hey, friend" since. I just delete them all. And that's habituation. Our job as marketing, the work that we do, is to do something that is that first "Hey, friend," the unexpected, the different. Now, it may sound overwhelming first, saying I have to constantly invent new, but when you target a niche community, what we can do is simply take ideas from outside that community and introduce them to our community. And often those ideas will sustain for a long period of time. The thing is, don't do what everyone else is doing, because that's ignorable. Do something that's unique and different, and it won't guarantee you business. It'll guarantee you attention. Once you have attention, you can matriculate them to business.
Well, I totally agree with that. And I think most of us entrepreneurs tend to see something that works and then sort of jump on the bandwagon
Yeah.
too soon. In your book, you really do talk about, simplifying and all of that. But I want to get back to something that really made me excited about interviewing you, other than I've read your books, is your goal in life is to get rid of entrepreneurial poverty.
Yes.
Now, why you're so special, Mike, is not only because I'm interviewing you, but because you really have hit a nerve that is unspoken in our world.
Yeah.
There's so much poverty, there's so much sleepless nights, there's so
Yes.
much angst and fear. And we're sort of stuck because none of us we're not employable.
Right.
I wouldn't last 5 minutes anywhere. So
Right.
I have to be self-employed. So I think one of the things that you've done that I think is great is you have given people a framework and you call it DAD.
Mm-hmm.
And what a great, easy name to remember. And it's simple. And I would really like to go in great detail for us about how to use DAD and how it affects people and what changes they will see because they've adopted something new.
Yeah. So I'll unpack that. And I do want to address the eradication of entrepreneurial poverty because it plays into DAD, this framework. So the reason I came up with that purpose for myself is my own experiences with struggle, financial struggle, and growing businesses. And on the outside, I was pounding my chest because I thought to achieve success, I need to demonstrate success. But in the inside, I was struggling. I couldn't pay the mortgage, surviving check by check. There's extremely sleepless nights, red blotches on my face, but the next morning I got to wake up and put on that fake smile again. And I thought it was just me. But then I read a statistic that came out from US Bank, 83% of small businesses, and a small business defined by the SBA is a company that does $25 million in annual revenue or less. That's absolutely my company a few times over. And perhaps some or many of the listeners right now. And 83% of us don't have enough money to pay the bills, to cover the expenses, let alone pay ourselves a reasonable and appropriate compensation salary. And so I was like, oh my God, this is the mass problem. It wasn't just me. And I struggled with it so much. I wanted to fix it for me, but then I realized I want to fix it for everyone who wants to listen to what I can share, and maybe it'll help. Well, when it comes to marketing and using this DAD framework, I had another realization that most small businesses are ineffective at marketing, yet most small businesses provide better services, better care. They're more nimble than their contemporaries, than I shouldn't say the contemporaries, than the large providers. I look at Amazon and I look at our local retailer. The owner works at the store. She really cares about her customer's experience. After you buy a product, she follows up and says, hey, does that fit right? Does it work? They really care. It is a superior experience. And yet no one knows about her. Everyone knows about Amazon. And I'm like, the problem is the customer, if they only know of Amazon, they're going to buy from Amazon, therefore experiencing something inferior to what they could have had. That's the customer's problem, but it's really her fault for not being exposed, for not getting the word out there. And that's what inspired me. I believe every business, if you offer something superior, this isn't something you should do. This is your damned responsibility. Like, it is the ultimate act of kindness is marketing if you offer is of service. So I came up with this framework to get really to the essence of what effective marketing is. First, you must differentiate. How the human mind works is to get past that habituation. We've seen this before, is the unexpected. There's actually 3 ways into the what they call the prefrontal cortex where cognitive thought happens. One is be a threat. So, if we're meeting and I'm like, hey, Lee, we should keep this podcast interview going a little bit longer, and I plop down a gun, I guarantee I have your attention. But there's a problem. I've now posed a threat. So what are you going to do? You're going to defend yourself. You're going to pop me in the nose. You're break my face wide open, stomp on my head. And so that's not a win. Step 2 is opportunity. If I plop down $1 million of cash and say, Lee, we should really keep this going for an extra hour, chances are you'd be like, let's think about that. And you'll take the money. Also big risk, but now the risk is totally on my plate that you may take the money and run. And so it's a very costly venture. The third is the unexpected. What's interesting about unexpected things is how our mind operates is when we see something we're not familiar with or not prepared for, the mind opens up to say, is this a threat or opportunity? If we were outside, something squiggles in the grass, we're going to jump back because our minds opened up and said, it could be a snake. Someone maybe just turned on the hose. I don't know, but we have to pay attention to evaluate the circumstances. So step 1 in marketing is do something that's different and unexpected. That's D. But the next component, A, is absolutely critical. You must have an attractor factor, meaning, does it speak to me? Does this engage me? Does it serve a need I have? Does it simply invoke curiosity or entertainment? What I love in your setup, I'm looking at your setup here with your books displayed. I love, it harkens the military and shows respect to military veterans. and people actively in the military. That is a huge attractor factor for a specific audience that's compelling to. That's powerful. Our message has to speak that quickly. Is this for me? And all these elements of the DAD framework happen in milliseconds. When you do something different, you got someone's attention for about 1/10 of a second. Once you have their attention, you better immediately demonstrate this is appropriate for you by having images, components, whatever that speaks to their interests, their needs, that it shows that this is of service to them. Then the last D stands for direct. And direct is to give someone a specific action to take. It's kind of ironic. A lot of the marketing stuff that we applaud is like stuff on the Super Bowl, the Super Bowl ads. Like we see, Budweiser run this great ad with these Clydesdales and stuff. It's a different, because we're anticipating it's something new. It's the first reveal, usually Super Bowl ad, which is also a form of being different. It's usually attractive because it's a compelling story. You're crying, you're laughing, but it's shocking. They don't do a direct. They don't say like, hey, now you saw our commercial, give us your email. We'll send you a coupon for a free 6-pack. They can get hundreds of thousands of ways to communicate with customers with their permission, but they don't do it. And I don't know why we herald these ads, because they do the they direct and attract, but they don't do the DAD, which is to give direction. So the one last component I want to share is when it comes to the direct, you must give the prospect, the person engaging in your marketing, specific direction, but it also must be reasonable. Meaning, in the circumstances that they're considering, what should they do? If you're looking to buy a new car and you walk my lot and I say, give me $100,000, Lee, now we'll talk about finding your car. That's absurd. It's not reasonable. If I say, give me your cell number so I can text you pictures of our inventory, you may feel that's reasonable. And I've matriculated our relationship down one step closer to the sale.
Well, I think a lot of us have been brainwashed by big corporations because they show us these. I mean, I watch the ads sometimes. I'm not quite sure who the ad is for, and I'm sure it costs a fortune. And it always freaks me out that I'm like, well, who the heck is this ad for? And who was the brain that put that together? But entrepreneurs can't be that stupid. We don't have the money, the time, or the energy to be that stupid. So as I was reading your book, I'm a big question person, and I really loved you ask us as the reader to ask yourself so many questions. So one of the questions was, what is your greater why? Why are you here on this planet? What is different? What is different what is different about you, kind of thing? And I mean, I actually, when I read a book, I don't read it just to skim it. I want to absorb the information. What is your greater why? I mean, I don't think many people even have ever asked themselves that question. And when you did, and I'm not going to call it a shtick because I don't believe it is your shtick, but it is a good shtick in the sense of that you're going to get rid of entrepreneurial poverty. If that doesn't call out like a scream to people like me because the first 5 years of my business, I mean, I was completely broke, and $23 in my checking account before the mortgage was due. And it's Lee Milteer, and I'm delighted to interrupt you today and let you know that I've been working with Stephen Oliver for 10 or 15 years now. He's a great guy. I love all the research that he does. And I just wanted to let you know that if you're enjoying the content on this podcast, then you really want to make time to visit advisorwealthmastery.com. And why should you do that? Well, because you're going to receive 2 of his great books, and actually one of mine called Success is an Inside Job. You'll also get a lot of absolutely free material on growing your practice through effective marketing. So again, take the time to go to advisorwealthmastery.com. Are just praying and begging, and something has got to save me. I might have to go get a job, or God forbid, get married. So
that's funny.
So anyway, I did get married, and that worked out just fine. But the job thing would never work for me. So what are some of the what impact were you meant to have in
Yeah.
this world?
So, and there's a reason I put that in the book is many people I've connected with that are small business owners and discussed marketing with, they deem marketing as being bothersome, not to them, but to the person they're prospecting. They say, I don't want to be a bother. I don't want to interrupt or upset. And I want to reframe that in saying marketing is the ultimate act of kindness, because if you offer something superior, you have a responsibility to display this. And I think we can only be emboldened enough to do that once we have a call to a purpose, a why. For me, it boils back to trauma. And it was interesting. I was researching this and spoke with the psychologist 15, 20 years ago about this concept. And sadly, I don't remember her name, but she said there's 3 triggers often in a person's life that will form the purpose, the why. One she called the big T's, and the big T, the letter T, is big traumas. So for me, what a trauma is a monumental shift in the way we perceive the world, crushing our identity, and it can happen in an instant. For me, it was around financial trauma. I lost all my money. I'd become a self-made millionaire in my early 30s. I thought I was hot shit. I was not, but I thought I was. And I was like, look how great I am. I was just buying stuff. And my next business, I was a calamity. I destroyed it. I lost everything, including my house, everything. It was the greatest wake-up call I needed. I was so blessed not to lose my family. But admittedly, that trauma is nothing compared to what many people face: sexual abuse, physical abuse, emotion. It's unbelievable what the human species does to the human species. But if we've experienced that form of trauma, we can leverage this to be our biggest advantage. We can say, I will never allow this to happen to anyone else again. I will never allow it to happen to me or anyone. And it becomes a statement. I'm listening to a book, The Happiness Quotient or something. I was listening to it literally this morning, and it was a fascinating question. So this is kind of super fresh for me. The author said, imagine 2 scenarios. Today, you can win the lottery, or today you can become paralyzed. Which one in the rest of your life will make you more happy? And so the gut instinct was, of course, lottery. I can do whatever I want. And the author went on to say that the research indicates being paralyzed actually brings more happiness than being a lottery winner. The lottery brings happiness in the moment because now you have freedom of choice and so forth. We become acclimated to it. Becoming paralyzed brings you to ground zero, where all of your expectations and assumptions of life are riddled. And now you start assembling back up. The rest of the journey is a recovery as our mind adapts to it, and we learn perspectives. We have greater appreciation. Statistically, people are happier after being paralyzed than lottery winners. It just blew my mind. So, and I don't wish now actually either scenario upon anybody, but those are traumatic events. The second thing this instructor shared, or psychologist, was small T's. Small T's are drip trauma. It's like where you're the kid in grade school who's picked on over and over and over again, or your parents are emotionally abusing you without even knowing it, perhaps. There's a certain point where we draw the line in the sand and say, I will never allow this to happen to myself or anyone else again. That can become your why. And the last one she shared was childhood dreams. I have a dream to one day serve people and inspire people by being an astronaut, or whatever that dream was. And maybe the vocation isn't what we need to do, but it's that essence of what the impact would be, that we'd inspire and serve people. And we can grasp onto that childhood dream. I think, to your point, most people don't really think about that. We're moving in this kind of day-to-day livelihood, just trying to survive, but we're not focusing on these transformational moments we've had in our lives. I think if we do, it can bring about great purpose. And once you have a self-defined, or if you want to say God-given purpose, once you have that purpose, at least for me, my gosh, it's this relentless source of energy. And I feel, quote unquote, unstoppable in what I do because I feel I have to do it. It's serving my purpose.
I love that. And yes, I totally am aware of trauma. I have my fair share of lots of it.
I'm sure.
And part of my trauma was that I would never allow myself to be so broke that I would have to bow myself into things that I really never wanted to do.
Yeah. Yeah.
and and I think I have with Millionaire Smarts and all, all the books that I write about, one of my big books is Success is an Inside Job. I mean,
I love
success
that.
is an
I love
inside
that.
job. I mean, it is an inside job. And by the way, everybody told me not to use that title because it was a cliche, but
Yeah.
however, it's in its 12th printing. So,
Yeah.
uh,
Yeah. I think it was a smart title choice. Yeah.
so, um, so one of the things I wanted to talk to you about was that you really represent that everything that you do should be who you are and your integrity
Yeah.
and represent you. So let's talk about some of those things that we
Sure.
have all kinds of great people on. They're all entrepreneurs.
Yeah.
I've learned not to have trauma in life, to stay away from civilians is what I call them as
That's
much as
funny.
possible, and
That's funny.
to stay with people who really kind of sort of understand your purpose in life.
Yeah.
So let's talk about how people can just emit who they are into the
Yeah.
world and market themselves.
When I started talking about Get Different, when I was writing the manuscript, some people were hearing that as get outrageous, and that is not what this is about. Like, this is not about like put on that Bozo the Clown costume with the floppy shoes and the yucca yucca horn. It is not that. What I found Get Different is ironically an amplification of who we already are. And the word authenticity has been bastardized too much, so I want to avoid some of the preconceived notions we have around it. But it is a great word in that when it's a true amplification of our true idiosyncrasies. I admittedly am silly and goofy, which can compromise the sincerity of my message. And I realize that. So there's this little kind of fighting dichotomy occurring. But that silliness and that goofiness, by amplifying, leaning into it, it resonates with a certain community. So you'll see all the marketing I do has flavors of that. If you visit my site or you read my books, any of that stuff, you'll hear that message over and over again. So it's a consistent stream. I have this thing called ports of entry. Now, to give context, you're in Virginia, I think, right? Yeah. So I went to Virginia Tech, go Hokies. I live in northern New Jersey. And are you in the Virginia Beach area?
I am.
Okay. Okay. So I had friends in Portsmouth and all around there. And when my friends would come visit me in northern New Jersey, where I still live, they would either fly into Newark Airport or they would drive in up the New Jersey Turnpike, or some folks would come in from New York City. And the problem is, any of those ports of entry, you end up in the industrial complex of New Jersey, which is about 1% of New Jersey. But New Jersey has a reputation for being the armpit of the nation. And as a New Jersey resident, we deserve it. We absolutely deserve it, because every time you first experience our great state, it's our armpit. It is a horrible port of entry. Now, New Jersey is like the blueberry capital of the world. There's more blueberry production. We have more farms, blah, 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 all these wonderful things. But if we don't expose that from the get-go, the impression's been made. When we do our marketing, we need to amplify and first present who we are, the authentic self, at the extreme immediately. If you show the watered down version of you, it's on the back end where you have to kind of say, well, I'm not really that boring and so forth. This is who I really am. And you have to try to unwind something, but sorry, you're already the armpit of the industry. So what you need to do is look at who you are truly. Are you the most professional? Then exploit that. Are you the geekiest? Then exploit that. Are you the funniest? That's cool. Lean into it, but amplify who you are through your marketing messages, and the customers will resonate with that. The right customers. The final point I want to make on this subject is no one knows anything about our business. No one has any experience with our business until they work with our business. So therefore, the only experience they'll have is our marketing up until doing business with us. And that's why our marketing is so critically important.
So you have a chapter, it's called Chapter 9, The Disadvantage Advantage. And you tell this great story about Dolly Parton. And I would love for you to share that, because I think it ties in with what you're talking about. So let's talk about Dolly Parton.
Dolly, yeah.
Dolly.
Dolly's amazing. She has, I think the ranking is called the Q status, but there is this media ranking of celebrities. And the the most effective celebrity is one who has the greatest community that they can influence and has the greatest likability. So it's very rare. Actually, I can only think of one person who has a broad community, meaning it's married, single, gay, straight, black, white, every variant of humanity, and is liked by all those people. You usually have someone who one community says this is the best, and another community says that's the worst. And you see that in politics all the time. Dolly Parton is the highest rated Q score in the world. She has the most name recognition. I bet you everyone listening to this says, oh, I've heard of Dolly Parton before. I bet you an image pops to mind and you're like, yeah, she's fine. She's cool. She's great. She's something. What was so interesting about Dolly Parton's story as I was researching it, I did call to interview her. She politely declined. Yeah, I get it. No, she's busy. But my research on her was fascinating in that she accentuated everything that the experts were telling her not to do. They said, that blonde hair you have, dumb blondes, you don't want to be a dumb blonde. So what does she do? She puts on wigs, she amplifies her hair, and she writes a hit song about dumb blondes. They say, your chest is kind of front and center. She's like, yeah, now it's going to be even more front and center. And she amplified how she exposes herself and accentuates herself. Everything she was told to water down, she actually amplified. And I think is a great lesson for all of us that if they make fun of it, that disadvantage could be your biggest advantage. Exploit it. I do my own versions of this. My last name, Michalowicz, we were talking off air. It is super freaking hard to pronounce. It is like Polish. Yeah, it's like horrible. So I make fun of it. When people visit my website, right in the top left, right next to my name is pronunciations. And there's 25 different pronunciations that bastardize and make fun of my name. I make a joke of my own name. And sure enough, we do like heat maps and stuff on my website. That is one of the most clicked through elements. So whatever is your weakness actually could be your biggest strength.
Yes, I totally agree with that. And I have used that to my own advantage on many times, being a farmer's daughter from Chuckytuck, Virginia.
I love it. Love it.
Grew up a mile and a half from the nearest secondary road, population 60. And my father was a rancher farmer, and he was a kick-ass, take no prisoners kind of guy. And I certainly got his personality. So as people told me to be more ladylike or, cut my hair because my hair is extremely long. Yeah. Nope, not going to do any of those things. I'm going to be myself. I'm going to love myself. And, you'll either like me or you won't. And that's just fine because there is an audience for people like me. And so I loved, this whole thing about marketing yourself more with everything that you do. I'm sure you've heard of Dan Kennedy.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. So Dan Kennedy and I are good friends. And one of the things that dovetails with his message and your message is he talks about people selling from the stage. Mm-hmm. And he always says, if you have a great product and you get on stage and you're in front of a lot of people and you don't share what you've worked so hard to create, then you're actually cheating them.
Yes.
And he goes on to great lengths about that. And yet, I get hired all the time to help people sell on stage, and they're terrified that someone is going to be upset or offended by it or won't like them. And I'm going, I think you're missing the entire point.
Yes.
The point is this person on the stage has done this massive amount of work, created this product, and if they don't have the guts to tell people about it, it'll just die. And that's what I see a lot of entrepreneurs doing. They are literally sort of dying on the vine.
Yeah.
And you and I both have heard so many people say, well, I love being an entrepreneur, but I just hate marketing.
I know. I think we're mixing persuasion and manipulation. We, the small business owners, and what persuasion is someone's at point A in their life, and you have something that will bring them to point B, and point B is in their best interest. They're just afraid of that journey. Our job is to help them navigate that. Manipulation is where they're at point A and you have point C, which is fully of service to you and of disservice to them. Manipulation is moving them to that point. It's funny that I was thinking about the stage, and a very persuasive and truthful, humble thing is to go on stage and say, am and still am terrified of selling on the stage because there's going to be some people in this room that say, you're just trying to manipulate me. But I have to do this because I know my product is the best of service, that it will change someone's life in here, maybe many lives. And that's why I'm compelled to do this, even beyond my own terror, because I may offend someone. Just by putting that on the table, it's like you've dispelled that jab that may come your way. And that is authentic, persuasive marketing, in my opinion.
Yes. And you also talk in your book about if everybody's doing one thing, for the love of God, don't do that. So sometimes I'll go and watch people sell from the stage, and they have formulas that are really old that everybody has used. So like even before they do it, I know exactly what's the next step.
Yeah.
Now I do study this stuff, but the fact is that whether people can articulate it or not, they actually do know what the next step is. They feel manipulated because of the person going through these formulas of this is how you sell this thing. Maybe that worked, as you said, the first few times, but now it's just kind of old and the person doing it doesn't feel authentic. They just feel like they're going through the motions.
Yes. And the problem here too is if the receiving end has experienced it before too, and the prior person marketing that way was manipulating, they're like, oh, this is a manipulation. We go through this pre-framing that what we've experienced in the past, we expect to be the same way. You burn your finger on that pan, you won't do it again because you're like, oh, putting finger on pan will burn. We hear someone going through that formula, we're like, oh, last person hooked me for $1,000 and I got no value out of this. Watch out, this is a burning pan. So there's two ways to address that. If you're following the same old formula, say, I'm following a formula or process to build your awareness, to invite you to do this. And here's the reason why. There was a study, I think it's in Robert Cialdini's book, I don't recall, but the most powerful word, he argued, is the word because. And what I found fascinating about it is that if I say, hey, Lee, I'd love to meet with you for dinner, and that's it, you may say, well, what's Mike trying to get out of here? He wants to get he wants dinner because he wants to negotiate a deal or try to sell me something. Like you and I will backfill an offer with a justification. And if I don't preface it with a because, if I don't give you a reason why, you will fill it with what your experience indicates, which often is a negative thing. He's trying to sell me something. But I would say, hey, Lee, I'd love to go out to dinner. I have family that's in, former military, and I see that you have that same experience. I actually just love to learn your experience of living through certain life events with military family. And do you mind if I take you out for dinner? Now it's like, oh, okay. And we go into this with an understanding of the relationship. I think, sadly, I see many people sell from stage, sell on their website without the because. And I think that's actually a very powerful tool.
I totally agree. And I think that the real core of you, Mike, is that we've worked really hard to create products and services, and that we have to get over ourselves.
Yeah, right? Isn't that funny?
Get over ourselves of feeling insecure and too much brain garbage going on and that sort of thing. So so when you first start working with people, how do you discern, or you look at their stuff or look at them and know that they're underselling, they have no confidence in themselves?
Yeah, I do start with the questions about, is this the best of you? Why did you create this product or service? What does it mean to you? Some people admittedly say, well, this is just an easy way to make money. This is what the consumer base needs. And there's a concept that perpetuates this called pivoting. I'm rallying against it because I think it serves us only partially. The idea of pivot is keep adjusting what we sell until customers buy it, which makes sense for revenue. But I think we don't consider our own thirst. I've seen people pivot into a business that they loathe. It makes money, but they hate doing what they're doing. I think we need to do what's called alignment. Alignment is what's true to your internal self, the greater why, trauma, whatever it is, what's true to you and is of service to your client. That way, now we joyfully are delivering our offering. And that's why I seek out that alignment first. Once I see that they're doing this for a purpose that generates money, that's sustainability, gives them a lifestyle of comfort, that actually brings about more sustainability and is of great service. Once I see that combination, then I got to flip the script and say, why aren't you marketing this? And it's almost comical. I go to people, I'm like, how much do you believe in your product? I believe in it so much. This is a game changer. Would you do anything to get this out to people? I love people. They need to discover this. So what marketing are you doing? I can't market. I can't, it's just like, there's a switch. So I'm like, what the F is going on with this? How come we're walking away from something we believe in? And then I discovered biologically, we are wired not to get noticed. So if we were back in the Neanderthal days and we're hunter-gatherers, you and I, if we did something that made us stand out, we're kicked out of the tribe. If we say, hey, everyone wants to go and get that tiger or that saber-toothed tiger, I want to eat a woolly mammoth today. Screw you. The tribe's like, okay, go for a woolly mammoth. And by the way, you're never invited back. Now you're on your own and that woolly mammoth is going to stomp on your head. It's literally death. Leaving the tribe is death. Fast forward to modern society, we are still wired the same way. So intrinsically, getting noticed, we know is death. But there's this kind of bipolarism going on. We also know the only way to get noticed is by being noticeable. The new tribe to find us has to see the beacon in the dark. So it's weird, but we want to get noticed without being noticeable. We want to stand out without having to stand out. And so to bridge this, I tell people, listen, you believe in your product, you stand out, your tribe may reject you. So be prepared for that. But a new tribe is waiting for that beacon. They have hands open, waiting to receive you. You have to have the faith in the new tribe.
Yes, I love this. So Millionaire Smart entails many things about being an entrepreneur, but my passion in life is really the mindset. Because if you get the mindset right, then the things will fall into place, and people they fight for their limitations.
I know.
They hold on to these ridiculous beliefs that people will judge you. Well, I got news for everybody. Every time they lay eyes on you, they judge you about everything. And
yep. And listen, I'm judgy. I am so judgy, but I don't want to admit to myself. That's the great perversion. Another perversion of humanity is we judge everyone, but we feel we're not judging. I'm like, okay, I'm the exception to the common human rule. I don't judge. That was a judgment right there in itself.
Right. And so my life is devoted to, and it really is to prove to people that they have potential that they're not using.
I love
that there's so much more to you. I grew up in an area where I was so nobody expected anything from me.
Yeah.
My parents were farmer ranchers. They had a daughter. They just expected her. She'd marry another farmer rancher and live on the farm the rest of her life, pump out a few kids, and life would go on. Well, I wasn't like that at all. And I got nothing but rejection because I did not follow the storyline that was expected of me, and pretty much got thrown out of the tribe.
Yeah.
Which was painful, but the best thing that could have ever happened to me, because I wasn't aligned. That's a very important word for me. I can share this with you. I get invited to do lots of things that don't feel in alignment, but they might have a lot of ching to them.
Yeah.
And I seriously consider them and then have to politely decline, because if I can't be true to me, then I can't be true to anyone.
Yeah. I was invited. So I wrote a book called Profit First, which challenges account. I was invited to a CPA conference, and they said, hey, we want you to speak on Profit First. And I said, but you can't say that gap is crap. Like, you can't say that old accounting doesn't work. We just want you to give some insights. And it was a big dollar. And I'm like, oh my God, I so want this.
Yeah.
And then I'm like, oh, I'm biting and finally I'm like, just say no, just say no. And when I said no, the relief I felt internally, it wasn't there externally. I still was like, what am I doing? What am I doing? But internally it's like, okay. Because that's the first bite at my own integrity. I'm taking a piece out of it. And it just starts a downward spiral when we start compromising ourselves.
So how do we convince people that somehow they have convinced themselves that marketing is beneath them? And just like in why the first part of your book is so valuable, you were so convinced that you had to have 20,000 books. Because, today we're like, was my brain on pause that day? Yes.
Yeah.
But people have these rock solid beliefs. So how do we get them to, I know we can go in and you can sort of reinvent and market for them, because that's what they all want, is somebody to market for them. And they also get taken like that too.
Yeah.
Almost.
Yeah. Listen, when people say marketing is beneath me, I then say, well, what's greater than spreading the gospel of your business? Like I can't imagine anything more important. The other thing too is marketing beneath your company. What if we went to your competitors and said, hey, we want to give you all the tools for marketing because this other company doesn't believe in it. How would that make you feel? And if they're like, well, that's fine, then God bless you. You've got a hobby and something that maybe gives you intrinsic value of just the doing, but you don't believe of the greater impact that you can or should have. And that's, and that's just fine. But if you feel that your business is intended to have a greater impact, the number one responsibility then is to spread the gospel, to spread the word, to get the word out on your business. I don't think it's beneath anyone. I think it's actually it should be the most heralded. I think it's one of the most heralded responsibilities we can have, is spreading the word.
So, I do a lot of entrepreneurial one-on-one coaching. And one of the things that I find is everybody complains about administrative work, including myself.
Yeah, ditto.
It's just like, oh, shoot me now. If I have to look at the book, but I know you're supposed to look at the books. I look at the books, but there's just certain things I have to like brace myself to do. And so I think it's very urgent for all of us to just get on the bandwagon of the more people who know about your product, the more people you're of service to.
That's right.
The more people you're of service to. I call it being adding to your spiritual bank account. Because you're actually helping them move past these mental blocks. So the average entrepreneur on an average day spends most of their day in administrative hell. Whereas if they actually convince themselves that they could have fun in marketing and it's a creative thing, that, they would make a lot more money marketing themselves than they will just making sure that administration is working fine.
Totally. Yeah. We are like rivers. I'm like a river. I go to wherever the easiest path is. I avoid the obstacles of the mountains and so forth. And that's problematic because it's very easy to do busy work as opposed to important work. When it comes to marketing, not everyone has the propensity to market. Not everyone has that desire, but that doesn't mean that won't serve your company. I wrote another book really trying to demonstrate to entrepreneurs that we are not our business. And yet that's how most of us see ourselves, that, oh, my business and me, they call it parent-child relationship. I call it bullshit. It's more like conjoined twins is how we behave. Shared organs. I'm struggling at home. My business is going to struggle. Business had a good dollar day. I'm going to have a good dollar day at home. Like we're that much in sync. But I think we really need to surgically separate ourselves out and realize the business is its own entity. Our job as entrepreneurs is not to do the work necessarily. I think our job is to be the creator of jobs. There's a study, I'm not sure of the source, but 7% of the world population will ever start or lead a business. 7%, 93% are just looking for good jobs. So our job is to create jobs. And so therefore, as we expand our business or grow our business, perhaps marketing isn't something that we thirst to do, but it is of great service to the entity that we're a steward to, our business. And we should then bring in people that are capable of doing that. And our job maybe is to ensure the integrity of that marketing that is consistent with who we are as the founder of this organization, that it's a manifestation that is consistent throughout. So maybe it's more of a brand integrity, but no matter what, even if we don't directly do the marketing, we can't shirk that responsibility. It's what brings the cash in, the lifeblood of the business.
It is. And I believe that a lot of entrepreneurs spend the least amount of time on that. It's like, I'll get around to it.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, right. There's a friend of mine, his name is Barry Moltz. He wrote a book and he alluded to this concept. You know Barry Moltz?
I do. I've interviewed him. Yes.
Yeah. Wow. The Barry Moltz. Wow. I love Barry. And I love how he sometimes will do talk like this. He really leans into his Judaism and will do stuff. Well, he told me things like, hey, Mike, there's this thing called the double helix. And you got to be aware of this. I'm like, what's this double helix? It was a fascinating demonstration. The double helix is the DNA kind of code. But what it has is when in a small business, something is heightened, like sales, we're focusing on sales, we decrease our effort as a small business owner to deliver the services or products. So we're just trying to sell. Once we convert those sales and the money starts flowing in, we start to curtail our effort to sell as we then flop our work over to do the work itself. So now work is up, but sales are down. Well, then the work starts tailing off. There's nothing to do. We got to jump back on sales. And many business owners will flip-flop in this double helix for life. And this is a trap. We have to make a commitment to do one thing extraordinarily well and then start filling in those other components with other people. And I'm not saying full-time employees alone, that's one thing, but maybe part-time, maybe virtual help, maybe just vendors. But I think no one can ever sell as well as a business owner. It's a real rarity, at least, because no one knows the business like us. And what predicates sales is marketing. So I think no one can market like us. And I think those are the two responsibilities, marketing and sales, that a business owner will see through for the longest period of time as they grow their business, maybe ultimately remove themselves from all components. But for the longest time, marketing and sales will be the number one thing that we can have the most effect on.
And yet most people who are in the entrepreneurial world are always looking for their sales marketing people. Mm-hmm. Instead of realizing that nobody can sell it as good as you. Brian Tracy, who I speak with on normal, lots of stages, and he and I were talking, he says, I'm so confused by business owners. They're so focused. If I could just get the right sales guy, if I could just get the right marketing guy, when you're the person who has the most skin in the game. You're the one who's the most enthusiastic. You birthed it. Why aren't you giving yourself permission to be the number one salesperson, the number one marketer?
I know. It's unbelievable. Yeah, we look for that rainmaker. Like, if only I could find someone I could sell. You've already hired the rainmaker. It's you. Look in the mirror. Look in the mirror. And pour a bottle of water over your head, and there you've just made it rain. God.
I know you're doing a multitude of interviews today, so I'm going to be very respectful of your time. But I do want to talk about Chapter 7 really quick. Experiment, measure, amplify, and repeat. Yes. And you say in here, it could take up to 9 tries to get a good idea, and that some people are like pissed off about that.
Yeah. I got a few. So we had, as I was writing the book, so we tested on, I can't remember how many businesses. Then I created the book, and then we ran through full tests again with 100 companies. And one person actually took the book manuscript as she's reading it. I think it was Michelle Scribner. She threw it against the wall. Yeah, and she's like, "Yeah, that hit Michelle Scribner." Yeah, she threw it against the wall and said, "This is bullshit." And I talked to her afterwards, and she's like, "Because I know this is true." I think we're looking for the magic bullet or the magic pill, and honestly, the chance of getting it out on the first try is unlikely. We have to have a lot of failures. I framed the book to be marketing experiments as opposed to marketing plans. Most of the literature I was reading is about marketing plans. And I was thinking, if it's a plan, that means it's something we're committed to. I plan to go on vacation. This is what we're going to do, right? Yeah, there it is, the marketing. But if it's an experiment, there's an expectation for failure and a hope for success. Like, when we're kids in grade school and they do that little chemistry experiment where you're mixing stuff, you don't know what's going to happen. And something may blow up in your face. But that's the rule of experience. So these are marketing experiments. Those elements you talked about are the verdicts. Sometimes it's going to be an abject failure. And if it's an abject failure, let's not repeat that. At least we know something not to do. Most of the time, it's going to be a meh. It's kind of worked, kind of didn't work. But that's when we start looking at our experiments and say, what are the elements that worked? Maybe it was different and people noticed, but maybe they weren't attracted to it. And I got to amplify the attractor factor. And so you start playing with the elements until it works. And then sometimes, usually over time, you'll find one thing that just starts hitting out of the park. Once you get that, you amplify it. Once you do different and it's working, milk it for all it's worth, because your competition will catch on at a certain point and they'll do the same. Whoever did that Hey Friend, the first email, I wish they never shared it with anyone. And they kept on doing Hey Friend emails for as long as they could until the rest of the world caught on, and they never did it again. Whatever you come up with that works, milk that cow all the way till Sunday, and then keep experimenting with new experiments, because at a certain point, it's going to be habituated and we have to do something new for marketing.
So, Mike, you have a lot of great teasers in the book about where they can go to get some, formulas and things. And so share with them where they can go get that.
Yeah. So it's called gogetdifferent.com. That's the website. That's a direct. And what you'll get when you go to gogetdifferent.com, you can get the book, of course, but I would invite you to do the free resources, which is also a direct. If you click on free resources and download them, what I think is most impactful is there's a list of 100 different marketing experiments that cost nothing, or at least very little, that I suspect will be radically different than what you've done before and can have immediate impact. I think it's a great way to start your experiments because they're already done for you. So there's 100 ideas up there waiting for you.
See, I love the word experiment because it's not intimidating. And you're right. It sets up a completely different precedent.
Totally. Framing, framing is everything. We got to be very careful of the words we use. And, I think as a business owner, if we say that we're the chief marketing officer and business owner, that's going to change the frame, and we're going to own that responsibility, for example.
Yes. And I think you're a phenomenal example of having a good time marketing, because if this is our life, what the hell? Let's go for it.
Let's have fun. Yeah. Let's have fun. Yes. Let's have fun.
Yes. Because I'm not the kind of person who's going to sign up for some horrible career that, I'm waiting to die but keeping it because it's a dental plan.
I know.
That's not my thing. But I was born to be an entrepreneur. I love being an entrepreneur. I cannot ever be anything but an entrepreneur, although I'd be happy to win the lottery.
Yeah, I go that way too, over being paralyzed, but
yes. And I really want to tell everybody how important it is you get this book. I have most of Mike's books, and I'm very, I sit down and I read the whole thing, and I'm so excited. And if you could see how much is in yellow, everything is in yellow because I am in love with knowledge that makes money and makes me happy. And
I love that.
And I'm going to post that. You asked if people would post if they like the book. I'm going to go post that. So
I'm honored. Thank you, Lee. Thank
you
so
Mike, I really want to thank you from the bottom of my heart. I want Millionaire Smarts people want to thank you. And folks, please go get the book and tell them again where to go.
The site is gogetdifferent.com.
Yes. And that's how they can find you also. And also you have podcasts and you are rocking it. I mean, you are the poster child for every successful author. I'm serious.
Thank you. That means the world to me. Thank you, Lee.
No, I'm serious because I'm an author and I actually know how hard it is.
It can be hard. Yeah. It can be really hard.
It is my path.
I love it.
So anyway, I hope to be able to interview you really soon. If you ever need any help, I'm always there for you. And everybody from Millionaire Smarts just wants to thank you. Folks, we're going to call it a wrap. I'll see you next month, and thank you very much.